another great day at Rotary, February 11th. Happy Valentine's Day coming up to everybody. Today we've got a sad announcement at the beginning. We've lost one of our members, Bernie, in case you haven't heard, and I'd like to take a moment of silence to remember his 34 years of perfect attendance and our friend. Thank you. If you haven't gotten the memo yet on his service, it's going to be at Brentwood Methodist this coming Wednesday. Visitation will be 1, and then the service will be 1. He will be buried in Memphis, and so they will leave after that to move to Memphis for the final rest of this. Today, the invocation is going to be given by Mark King and the 4-way test and pledge by Jerry Texas.
As we go to the Lord in prayer this morning, we need to remember the family of Dan Jordan, Bernie Muller family, Bill Infant, Bill McCarthy, Leon Partain, Dottie, and Robert Fitton. So as we pray, if you will, prayers. Almighty God, with praying and talking with you, and our prayers are answered, doesn't mean you aren't listening. You hear every prayer we pray. Every word we say. I know you're listening because you know every little prayer we pray, everything we do. You hear every prayer we secretly pray in the name of Jesus, our Savior. You rejoice and praise His name. You're a mighty God. You created us. You created the earth. You love us. You watch over us. Give us life. You gave your Son. Prepared for us a way of life, a way of righteousness, and we praise your name. Sometimes there are blessings in unanswered prayer. We only realize it later in life when something happens that reminds us of our prayer years gone by. The source of all that gives us life, we've often turned away from your authority to our own smallness. Forgive us for our failure to hear one another's prayer, for boasting of anything of your promise, for believing in our own power to justify our lives, and for denying your call to take comfort in you alone. Lord, lead us to the river of life, that in all we do, we pray through your help, we may always be a witness for you, and through your help, we will become soldiers of the cross. It's only with your help and guidance we can become what you would have us be. Help us to be patient and wait upon you, Lord, and we'll give you all the praise. We ask all of these.
Good afternoon. This mic's hot. I don't know, it's hotter than that one. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the February 11th meeting of the Brentwood Rotary. We do have a couple of guests that I will ask Jack Massari to introduce. So if you guys will stand, we can welcome you.
I have Ken Johnson here. He wanted to hear the speakers today. He's from Brentwood. And I have James Davis, who's an entrepreneur and is going to be joining this club soon.
Good afternoon, James, Ken, thank you for joining us. We also, our speaker has some guests, but Kip, I'll leave it up to you. Would you like to introduce our speakers when they take the panel? So with that, President Crossley, I'll turn it back to you.
Got a note from Dan this morning. Thought I would read that to you guys because it's very sweet. It says, Please express my thanks to all the Rotarians for their support during Margaret's illness and funeral. I was overwhelmed by the number that attended the visitation and funeral yesterday. I will not be back at the meeting today, but I hope to be back next week and become more active as my responsibilities. But thanks, Dan. Margaret's passing, please stand first too. Got a lot of announcements, so I'm going to let Sybil do Happy Bucks first, and then we'll have the announcements after that.
Okay. All righty. Who's got some happy bucks? Oh, Lewis.
I need to pass along some information to y'all. Roger Reed is having surgery this afternoon for the removal of squamous cell, and it's long surgery, high risk surgery. So please keep it in your prayers. Roger Reed.
Who else? Okay. All right, Tom Carr.
Just happy to be safely back. Was in California, had a great time, and it's warm out there.
It's warm here. Zach.
Well, I'm happy for a few different reasons. I'd say the first and foremost, as a haphazard Bears fan, I am really happy for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who are going to win their first Super Bowl this weekend. He's always a Buckeye, just LSU fans, just so you know, we trained him and we gave him to you guys. And then I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't look at the schedule, but I'm really happy that my good friend, Dr. Ming Wang, has given our presentation. We got to know each other through the Reunite America group. And so I'm really excited about that. So multiple things to be grateful and blessed, and obviously be in the presence of you guys, great people, every Friday. It's awesome.
No offense, Zach, but Matthew Stafford is playing for the opposite team as University of North Carolina.
So on a professional football note, I am happy because we have Van Jefferson representing Ravenwood High School in the Super Bowl. And we also have Jalen Ramsey, Brentwood Academy, representing Brentwood Academy at the Super Bowl. And then we have Lee Molette's son going to UConn, just committed to play football. So I'm really excited for him. And his son is playing tonight in the Battle of the Woods against that other team across the interstate. And it's at Ravenwood. The good team's going to win.
Brentwood. Okay. Anyone else? No, that's it. I guess that's it, Betsy.
All right. The folks at the Martin Center have graciously offered us 3 tickets to the Antiques and Garden Show this weekend. Is anybody specifically interested in going to that? I have 3 tickets. I don't know. One of those. I don't know if we do this or not.
Anybody want these tickets or know anybody that might want the tickets? Downtown, yep. Music City Center. If you haven't been to Music City Center, it's worth the trip just to go down there and enjoy it. All right. Well, no, I've got them if you need them up here. We're going to see what we can do. If you think of anybody in your neighborhood that might like them, please let me know. Not going to do any Rotary Minute this meeting because of the announcements. Martin Center snow policy. I sent this out in reflections, but remember now they're not going to go by the Williamson County Schools schedule anymore. So you'll have to depend upon our calling you or sending you an email, probably be emails, to let you know if we're not going to meet. Hopefully we won't have any more snow days or strange things happen. But just want to let you know. On Monday night, Sarah Johnson and members of the Inclusive Playground folks are going to be able to, the 28th, excuse me, right, not the 14th. Thank you, Jody, for keeping me straight. Not Valentine's Day, although they will be meeting on Valentine's Day, but on the 28th, we'll be donating a check to the city of Brentwood for $50,000 more, bringing our total to $600,000 for the Inclusive Playground. So everybody should give yourselves a hand for that. Thank you for signing up for lunches and for folks that you're bringing. Please continue to do that. It's very important to Larry. Sheila, did you want to say something about Ryla and the dates, or do you want me to just run through it real quick? Okay. Ryla is going to be held in Clarksville this year, as usual, at Austin P. It'll be the 14th of June through the 18th of June. So that's a Tuesday through Saturday. If you know some deserving young folks that would be that would benefit for some leadership training, please let us know. It's the application will be available this afternoon on the website because I was working on it this morning. You didn't get there. The information is on the work site. I just don't have the tied application except in the blurb that talks about what Ryla really is. Also next week, Tom has gotten in touch with one of the folks that reached out from WKRN. They're going to be following the trial of Dustin Legeza and his death. And so they have reached out to us to talk about the scholarship that we're getting ready to offer. So it's going to be today. Okay, thank you, Tom. And so we will be on some of that coverage next week. So keep an eye out on WKRN. Board of directors are going to meet 4:30, First Horizon again. Thank you, Drew. That will be this Wednesday. Please try to get your committee reports in as soon as possible. Again, those of you wishing to attend a district conference at Muscle Shoals, that's going to be April 28th through May 1st. Please let me know. There's a special hotel rate, which was very good. It's at a spa hotel. So just, you know, if that might make you more likely to go, please let me know. Also, RI conventions this June in Houston, the 4th through the 10th. You can sign up for that online on RI. And Hunter, are you here? Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about Waverly?
Well, the Rotary clubs in Williamson County are supporting the Waverly food distribution. And so tomorrow we have 7 or 8 of our members will be going down to Waverly, and we'll be doing distribution for, we think, 300 to 400 families or people will probably be fed tomorrow. So I want to thank the Rotary members of our club for volunteering, and then also the other 4 clubs that are helping support the food part on this. So we're going to do this. The theory is we'll do this one Saturday every month for the next several months. So this will be other opportunities for people to jump in and be a part of this. We'll let you know ahead of time.
There's actually a shuttle going if you're interested in that, rather than having to drive to Waverly yourself. And I'm sure that there are some folks from our club that are actually going to drive to Waverly as well. So you've got both sides covered there. Any more announcements at this time? Patrick Wright.
Got a kind of a warm, sorry we're not having it this year. But I think our communication network worked when we were trying to promote it, and it seemed to work pretty well when we were trying to cancel it. I've decided it's just as hard to cancel it as it is to have it. So to be sure we get everything out, but we got with the scouts and got a blast email out. So nobody did show up that morning. So that was actually good. But I would like to, next couple of months, pull the folks together who've indicated an interest in supporting this and have been a part of it in the past, to maybe put a little more organization around the event for next year. But several people did respond that they were disappointed, but certainly understood. And I think we made the best call given all the rain we had and then the very cold temperatures Saturday morning. So, but I do appreciate you all and the support you gave me in preparing for it, even though we weren't able to have it. Thank you.
And Patrick says a little more organization. Patrick was very organized. He just needs some folks helping do the work. So please help Patrick by coming to that meeting when we get the chance. All right. This time then I'm going to let Kip introduce our speakers, our panel.
Okay, great. Let me tell you a little bit about how this started. So I'm a member of the Tennessee Immigrant Minority Business Group, and I go and see all these conversations. And basically, I would hear one side of the story, I'd hear that side of the story, I'd hear another side of the story, and I'm an engineer, okay? So I believe all problems can be solved if there's a process that you follow. So basically, and I'm a business guy, so in business, I was hearing people, do we tackle this or do we not? We do nothing. or should we absolutely solve this? Just yesterday, I had a friend of mine say to me, do we have a problem with racism? And then another one said to me, we have a serious problem we got to talk about. So which one's right? That's basically how this started. We said, well, Donovan, I want to go to lunch. And I want to ask all of you to read the little teaser that's on your tables. It was published in the Tennessean, and it's about Donovan and I going to lunch. And so I want to introduce Donovan Robertson, who is one of our panelists. Donovan, will you come up? Donovan is from Kingstown, Jamaica. Kingstown, Jamaica. He's got a BA from Columbia. He's got an MBA from University of Illinois, Chicago, lives in Brentwood. He's my friend. Dr. Ming Wang. He's from communist China, survived the Cultural Revolution. Moved here in the 80s. He's the founder of TIMBG, amongst other things. I tried to put the bios on the table so everybody can look more into these people. Lee Molette. Lee? A native Detroit guy. We have been coaching sons together for a long time. He's a neighbor of mine in Brentwood, and he has a wonderful solution. And then Sandra Lee. Sandra Lee is Hispanic. She's from the, it doesn't really matter. She is a media professional at The Fish. She is a singer-songwriter. She's a wonderful individual. She's also the executive director of the Hispanic Organization for Leaders and Achievers here in Tennessee, which I am a board member of, and I love being a part of. So this is the panel of people that impressed me a lot because they just came right out and they said, this is what people should start with. And the goal of what you have in your hands today is to have something you can do. It's not about doing nothing. And we all kind of have that. You might have read the title, How to End Racism, and it maybe kind of like a sick, bitter feeling. Well, today's objective is to give you like something to think about that can spin it around for the positive. That's our goal today. So that being said, one of the driving principles I heard from one of these panelists, Dr. Ming Wang, was we learn more from people who are not like us. Put another way, we learn less from people who are exactly like us. So the key and one of our messages is that let's start to have great conversations with people who are not like us and do not think like us, but do it in a four-way test approach. Do it in a, hey, we got a problem, let's talk about it approach, and have a great civil conversation that everybody wants to support. And they all see the angles and they see the issues, and here's the ways to solve it. So with that being said, I want to introduce Dr. Wang. What is your solution to ending racism and what can be done about it?
Thank you, Kip. Kip gave me a very strict time, so I'm going to run right into it. Our country is so polarized, and we think about why it's so polarized. We're so increasing fixated on differences rather than appreciating what we all have in common. Racial divide is one of the major ones. I've been very motivated trying to study this question. Why? Because I suffer through extreme form of polarization, which is dictatorship. America, let's don't go there. So I'm just going to show you a video about my personal journey about fighting poverty and racial discrimination. Then I'm pointing out the common steps.
renowned optometrist.
He created the amniotic contact lens, which is a remarkable development.
He's got this incredible institution that's bringing sight back to thousands and thousands of people around the world.
I derive any success that I have due to my incredible team, which includes Dr. Misha Botanovsky, Ruth Tarek.
I think the most incredible part of this entire film is that it's based on a true story.
And will continue to inspire many for years to come.
My journey from China to America and due to many challenges, difficulties.
Ended up finding his way to the United States with $50 in his pocket. Going to Harvard and MIT.
I think we might need some new clothes. Beat incredible odds to enter those schools.
And has been just a force for good.
He became this inspiration to so many people.
It's just one of those miraculous stories.
And Dr. Wang finds himself at the top of his professional career. And it's at that very moment that a patient enters his life.
Our pro bono office got a call from India. A little girl, 6 years old.
Kajal was sent out to be a beggar on the streets in a slum in Calcutta.
Street beggars make more money if they're legitimately blind. So the stepmother poured sulfuric acid in each of her eyes.
Maliciously, tragically, intentionally blind.
Hello, Kajal. You can call me Dr. Ming.
And it's actually the sight of her that sparks something in Dr. Wang's life, and he remembers his face.
It really becomes this introspective journey for Ming.
Evolves into this completely outrageous story that just takes him to the other side of the world just to find closure with something that he started with at home. An incredible story of a man who has gone through hardships that very few of us will ever endure. It didn't deter him, and just gave him this resolve that is very rare in people.
His ability to put himself at risk is just unbelievable.
Because sometimes love, I think, pushes us down to the point where it just beats us down.
We all lose our way periodically. A great friend is somebody you can count on in those hours.
I know it's frustrating.
Literally everything.
This story is about overcoming difficulty.
It's hard getting into medical school here in the States. Are you coming from China? Don't waste your time.
It's about fighting for one's dream.
Her name is Kajal, a very brave girl.
And never giving up hope.
We can do this.
Look at your ranking, Ming. Johns Hopkins, Harvard, wherever. You're going to do great things in this world and make both China and America proud.
At the core of it, it's also an immigrant story. And then it's a great reminder that an immigrant story isn't a foreign story. It's a story of all of us.
He just never gave up that dream. He never gives up on it.
And it definitely made him stronger.
He's got an extraordinary life and has an extraordinary story to tell.
What? Amniotic membrane contact lens.
How do you say work in Mandarin? Chang what?
Chang
Gongla.
Yes, okay.
Even when there's no light is coming from outside, light can emanate from within if one has love. Love for your fellow human beings.
Experienced racial discrimination in my life when I wanted to go to medical school. I was discriminated by the communist government in China, was not given the opportunity to study. And when I came to America, I was discriminated against because I'm Asian. The professor you saw that he said, you're from China, you're no good, don't waste your time applying for medical school. So all of us have experience in fighting racial discrimination. America represents freedom, common ground, faith, and responsibility. As I said, our nation is so polarized. 1985, I met then President Ronald Reagan in the White House. And he was very gentle and warm to me, like a grandfather figure to me over the years when he was the president. And he said, Ming, you know what? You and I are different. I'm taller and better looking. I said, yes, Mr. President. But we have shared humanity, don't we? We all need to find the common ground. Doesn't matter our ethnicity, race, and national origin. So over the years, I've been thinking, how can we help us find a common ground? With Dr. Rice's books, we established the Common Ground Network to study the methodology. So this is the method we have established. And this is applicable, every bit of it, to ease the racial tension. The common ground seeking steps, STEPS. And Jack and I, we're on the Reunited America Academy, and we study those methodologies. S, see the common ground. It's like husband and wife. If you don't want to see what you have in common, you're not going to find it. You're only going to find it when you're willing to see it. Second, T, trade places. I found out over the years, the best way to be a good doctor is to speak the language of my patients. How many times you've seen doctors that they just blow this information on top of your head and just walk out the room and say, doctor, are you connected to me? Do you care what I feel? E, empathy. When you meet someone with difference across racial divide, instead of shouting and yelling if they have different opinions, can we apply the SALT principle, S-A-L-T? S, start a conversation. A, ask a question. L, listen. And then and only then talk. P, perseverance. The film Sight, which co-starring Greg Kinnear, will be released later this year. The message is about freedom and liberty. Message is about appreciating America. The message is about perseverance and pay the price if it's the right thing to do. And finally, put into action, see common ground. Do you know who inspired Dr. Rice Brooks and I to formulate this common ground seeking steps? Is none other than Jesus Christ himself. Christ's life is the best embodiment of the common ground seeking steps, STEPS. He saw the common ground with us as human beings. He actually traded places by becoming one of us. He demonstrated his empathy towards the people in the lowest rung of society, and he paid the ultimate price by dying for our sin at the cross. And he put into action. We published Common Ground Bible Study, and which is to basically aggregate part of scripture that has to do with common ground seeking. It's a 4-week Sunday school study. I have some books back there if you want to purchase. $5 goes to the Common Ground Foundation. So to conclude, common ground is the intersection. Doesn't matter where you come, which racial, ethnicity background, we in the same country, there's a shared common set of rules. Common ground cruise ship doesn't matter what you are country from. You get on cruise ship 2 weeks, you obey the same set of rules. Common ground is a sports game. Doesn't matter you're black or white, or African American, Asian. When you put on sports jersey, you're fighting for the same team. I want to show you just a few examples that it is possible to find a common ground across racial divides, nationality, political spectrum. As Kip said, Kip is on the board of Tennessee Immigrant Minority Business Group, and Jonathan Roberts was founding member of the board as well. And our common ground, with different people, you can find different common grounds. With different people, you can find different common grounds. This group, our common ground is our love for America, our desire to be successful in business and help each other. Second example is foundation doctors from all over the world. And our common ground is to help blind orphan children. Here you see Kajal, 6-year-old orphan who was blinded by her own stepmother in India, was depicted in film Sight. Science and faith had common ground. Many of you know my research over the years, how to find a way to treat fetal tissue research without hurting the baby using amniotic contact lens. And 917 Society, you have the flyer information under leadership of Joni Bryan. Our common ground is our love for Constitution, put in the hands of every 8th graders. I'm a member of the Bethel Church. Our common ground there, even though 70 countries are represented, our common ground is love for Christ. Living Sand Ministry, a bunch of Christian men and women get together, applying scripture Monday through Friday. Our common ground there is to how to find a way to apply scripture in workplace. American Bible Project, we love the 2 cornerstones of our country, which is Constitution and the Bible, and we put the Bible back in the schools. And finally, Jack and we on this organization, Reunite Academy, under Canada's leadership. Our common ground there is to help all of us find a way to talk across racial divide. Yes. 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 Common ground Bible study. Yeah. So in conclusion, our country is so polarized. Today, my take-home message is let's apply the common ground seeking steps.
I'll challenge myself, all of us. Next time we see someone who has different opinions about racial divide, instead of shouting, yelling, can we apply the steps? Can we try to find the common, only by establishing common ground, can we have the beginning of engagement, the beginning of building a relationship, and the beginning of building a bridge of being able to work together and solve major problems such as the racial polarization. Thank you.
I love that dude. His movie, you need to see it. If you want to see the preview of it, contact him. So Donovan and I started this conversation, and I'd like to introduce Donovan now. So Donovan, please start telling this group how you and I approached the question of how do you end racism and what your reply was.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the invitation. My name is Donovan Robertson. On this bio, it says by my name, racist and sexist. I stand true to the solutions that Kip and I articulated in the article that we wrote for the Tennessean that says, one of them is to embrace your inner racist. I am racist. I am sexist. I am racist because I understand race. I am racist because I understand race. And if you look at the very definition of racism, everybody have a phone, get out your phone while I'm talking. Look up, go out and search racism, and you will see that it says that you judge people based on their race. And there's another piece that says some people feel that their race is superior to other people's races. I want to thank Whoopi Goldberg for showing that Black people can be racist. I thank Whoopi for showing that Black people can be racist. But here's one of the things that I want you to do is, do you understand the differences in race? Yes or no? And raise your hand if you do. Okay. Raise your hand. Do you understand, do you see differences in races? Yes or no? The answer is yes. You're racist. You're not a bad person. And racism isn't bad. Racism isn't a negative thing. It's just that you judge people based on your understanding of race. So that's the vast, vast, vast majority of people on this planet. The only people who don't understand race are the people that have never been exposed to race. So here's a really great question. If you want a great basketball player, do you go to a Jewish community or a Black community? Seriously. Exactly. But that's based on how the data that we have, the reality that we see. And this group has decided that we're going to create excellence over here. Okay, if you want a great lawyer, you go here. You want, and so these things are real. I'm a sexist. Has anyone here ever mistaken someone that you thought was a woman and it turned out to be a man before all this other stuff? But yes or no? And the answer is yes, because you're doing it based on your understanding, your knowledge, the things that you've been taught over time. In order to be non-racist, anti-racist, you need a lobotomy. Okay? Blind people are racist. How can we say that we want people to be colorful if a blind person is racist? Understand our words and what they really mean. At the end of the day, everybody, as long as you understand race, we're racist. Everyone, everybody. Everybody has unconscious bias. There isn't any one race alone that is unconscious. No. And the third is we discriminate. Every single individual, we discriminate. Discrimination isn't a bad thing. being biased isn't a bad thing, and being racist. Racism is what you think. Discrimination is what you do. The question is, when you do these things, are you doing them to harm people or not? Everybody discriminates.
That's why I love Donovan. So the goal here is to give you lists, give you actions, give you like resources. Okay. So we started out with these solutions, right? The first solution is start the conversation. The whole point of this forum is to start an organized conversation. When you need to organize the conversation, or you feel like someone else should organize the conversation, to support these organizations like TIMBG and the executive producer, or excuse me, executive director of the Hispanic Organization of Leaders and Achievers, Sandra Lee. Would you please tell us how you are taking action to end racism and what people can do about it?
Sure. So I'm going to agree with Donovan that we all do see color and we have some prejudice or, predisposed notions about different people, right? But my understanding, I think we all also have our own understanding of racism. My understanding is prejudice, basically when you treat someone wrong, unfair, when you persecute people based on their race, to me, that is what my understanding of racism is. So I think that comes from a place of differences, like Dr. Wang said, because someone's different. So I'm actually half Latin. My father's from Spain, and I actually get treated a little bit different even among the Latin community because I don't look Latin. I also learned when I started working to build leaders and achievers among Latinos throughout Tennessee that there is a lot of inconsistency even among the Latino culture. So if you're from Spain, so when someone said, oh, she's from Spain, they went, Spaniard, like, oh, they think they're better than all the other Latinos, than the South American Latinos. If you're from Mexico or New Mexico, the Vatos is what they kind of call them. You're kind of more machismo. You're more street. Okay. So then you're from Colombia or Peru or wherever you're from. There's even a lot of misunderstanding, or I'll call prejudice or discrimination, even among the Latin culture. So anything that's different, I also have felt I was one of the top 3 percentile of people, top 3% of general managers in television, which is where I work in radio and television, are women. So only top 3. So because I was a general manager of a radio station, a television station, I actually felt discriminated against being a woman in that type of a leadership role, whether it's the pay or whether it's not being taken seriously, add the blonde hair, whatever it is, whatever people can look at you and come up to their own assumption of what you are about. So I became involved with the Hispanic Organization of Leaders and Achievers. I serve as the executive director. And what our focus has turned into, and I think could be a solution or part of a solution on racism, is mentorship. I believe mentoring a minority or mentoring a Latino is what I call mentorship solves a myriad of challenges, I believe. Let me just give you one quick example. So we provide mentors who will mentor Latinos, maybe Latino woman who wants to own her own business, who wants to open a business, someone who wants to go to college, who's never been to college, doesn't know the path to college, someone who wants to become a doctor, but yet they're just trying to get into medical school, someone who's incarcerated. We work a lot with Men of Valor, the prison ministry, because they have, believe it or not, the majority of incarcerated population are either Black or Latino. So, but a lot of the mentors that are showing up there are white. So a white mentor coming in to mentor a Black man behind bars or a Latino behind bars, there's a lot of walls built up. you know, because they're looking at them like, you don't know me. You've got no problems. You don't have a language barrier. You're not from where I come from. You weren't in poverty. You didn't overcome communist China or whatever, right? So, but when you begin a mentorship relationship, so maybe you're a man of faith. Maybe you have children. So you start to mentor someone, a Latino behind bars, and you find out, you know, you look at each other and immediately all these walls are built, racist walls. But then you find out, wow, he's a man of faith. He tells you he's a Christian. So now all of a sudden you align on one thing. You're a believer, they're a believer. Then you find out he has children. Now you align on two things. You're a father, he's a father, right? And you start as that relationship builds and as you start to kind of help guide and direct someone else and see their viewpoint and have some empathy for where they're headed. And maybe you can teach them or guide them into some of the things that the pitfalls that you went through when you were trying to get into medical school or other things, depending on what you're doing. All of a sudden the walls start to come down and you start to align. And 6 months later, you just see a father who's a believer, who made some mistakes, who didn't have the leadership that you had or someone guiding him. So he made a lot of mistakes that led him behind bars. I believe it's part of the solution. If you would like to be a mentor or want to learn more about us, Ola is a great organization that's just trying to provide mentorship in a vast area of different areas of people's lives.
And their members salsa very well.
And we salsa, great.
And
See,
tell
and
them,
if you're a Latino that can't dance or a Black man that can't dance, there's another thing, right? We should all be able to dance.
tell them about what we do at the Standard with Ola.
So, so part of our growing our organization was trying to meet people where they are. Latinos love to salsa dance. So we started hosting a monthly salsa night at the Standard. We took it to a place that's not the typical place that Latinos go to dance. And we made it more of a dress up, high-end event. And people would just come and salsa dance and meet one another. And we had non-Latinos, people that didn't dance very well. I think Dr. Wang, I think you showed up a couple times, but we basically, yeah, he can dance.
Oh, he can dance.
See, he can dance salsa. So, so we just created different lanes, what I call them, lifestyle lane, education lane, in order to just meet people and bring people together. So
Wonderful. And we had a great conversation about how Governor Bill Lee has been doing mentorship, how you've seen Lee Beeman be a direct mentor, basically intentionally and like going across, like, I'm going to go hang out with some people that just I wouldn't be hanging out with.
right. Governor Lee, I told Kip before he became the governor, and I knew him years ago, every Tuesday he would be at a different prison mentoring a young incarcerated man. So he didn't have to do that. And I'm sure there were a lot of walls that got taken down when Governor Lee just spent his time, because anytime you just pour any bit of time, it could be lunch, it could be a phone call, it could be going down to a prison or wherever you were just at the prison. It could be anything that you do, but giving time to just help someone else, just to guide them, is what mentorship is all about.
Awesome. All right. So we were going through the solutions. We said start a discussion. We had the Common Ground Network. We have the book that Dr. Wang offers. We have Ola. We have joined TIMBG. We have joined Ola. We have previously had a speaker, Joni, what's her last name? Bryant. Thank you. She offers these constitutions. The Constitution itself, just being read, has been a document that is a solution to racism because it did correct its wrongs, and it evolves because it was created by an endowed creator. So it's offered as a solution. We offer a link on here. There's because in previous forums we have had the theory of, well, stop talking about it. That's been professed by Morgan Freeman and Lil Wayne, and there's a montage of videos on here that could say, well, let's just stop talking about it. Well, my friend Lee and I had this conversation, and it was awesome. So Lee, what I want to start out and just say is that I love that conversation about how you feel, okay? And I'd like you to share with our group here your solution. His solution's even better.
Thank you. Great to see you all. I'm a fellow Rotarian. I'm a member for 19 years, maybe 20 years of the Nashville Rotary Club, meets at Wild Horse. And from time to time, we get visitors from this club, and I think there's a Brentwood Breakfast Club. So it's great to be among you. Probably 6 or 7 years ago, I got to the point where I was really fed up with kind of what my journey looked like. Because I recognized the unfairness of some of the things that I had to deal with. So any of you all heard of Southwestern Company, those kids that sold books door to door? So I was one of those guys. All right, that's how I wound up in Nashville. I sold books to help pay for college, knocked on doors, did all that stuff. And then I went into wealth management, spent 27 years in wealth management, just retired from that business coming up on a year ago. But going through that process or going through that business, one of the things that I found was that it was a lot more difficult for me than my counterparts, my white counterparts. And it wasn't from a lack of knowledge or skill or ability, because again, I sold books door to door, straight commission in a bunch of different states, with a bunch of different people. So I recognized that wasn't the issue, and I worked just as hard and everything. I remember one of my first calls, I've been calling this guy in Ashland City, and I was selling bonds. And we had this great bond. I was with Edward Jones at the time, so had a great bond. He was all over it. Oh, yeah, I got to meet you. Let's go. I have $100,000 that I want to put into the bond. And, just send me the paperwork and everything. And so I showed up to his office, and all of a sudden he didn't need it anymore. Oh, man, you know what? I think I'm good. I don't think I need that. I think I'm going to be fine. I said, so you found out. Now keep this in mind. So it was a 30-year triple net, AAA rated bond, paying 8%, and that was 27 years ago. So he'd still be making 8% had he made that move, right? And who's getting 8% on their money right now? In a AAA and insured bond, what didn't have a call on. So anyway, and I said, oh, I drove all the way up here. I'm thinking to myself, and I, said, okay, that's fine, got it, moved on. And then I ran into more and more of that time after time after time. Now, don't get me wrong, I was able to build a successful business, and Kip and I talked about this. Have talked about this from time to time, and other people have said, well, you've built a successful business. Yeah, imagine if I was white, how big my business would be. Just imagine that. Same work ethic, have to deal with, and not have to deal with the obstacles of what I look like in order to have my success. And I could chart, based on some of my peers, some of my friends that were in the business. I saw what they were able to do, and I saw what I was able to do. And so probably, I guess about 6 or 7 years ago, I got to the point, I started looking at my kids. I have 3 boys. And I said, do I want my boys to have to deal with this crap when they decide that they want to go into business or go into their careers or what have you? Do I want my boys to be like a lot of my friends who hit that glass ceiling and they start training their next supervisor or next manager or the next CEO? They're training them from below, and they're getting catapulted over them. And this is real. Look at, and so is that what I want my kids to have to deal with? Do I want my kids to not want to move back to Nashville? Atlanta is, a lot more progressive. Charlotte's a lot more progressive. I grew up in Detroit, Chicago. So there are places that they could go, DC. There's some places that they could go, and they still have to deal with it, but maybe not in mass like they would have to deal with it here. So that was the question I asked myself. Do I want my kids to have to get pulled over? I got boys. I'm going to reiterate that from time to time. I have boys. Do I want my boys to get pulled over because they're driving dad's car, or because they've had some level of success and they bought themselves a nice car? Because I understand, well, I have an 18-year-old now. He's the one that's going to UConn. And I understand that young people, because I was young, and I remember when I was young and I would get pulled over by the police, I cracked my window, like, what do you want? I wouldn't do anything. What you want? So as a young person, I'm being combative to this officer who feels superior and official, and he's pissed off because I'm calling his car. And now all of a sudden it becomes a conflict. So it goes bad because I called him out, because I don't agree with the fact that he pulled me over. I have 3 boys, and there's a very good possibility that they would do the same thing. Now, what happens to black boys when they decide to defy the police? We've seen it, haven't we? Have we seen enough of it? Do we need to see more of George Floyd? Do we? That's enough, right? We don't need to see it over and over again. But nobody has done anything about it. People will say it, and this has been going on for many, many years. If you all go to Montgomery, Alabama, there's this museum or memorial. It's the Lynching Memorial. It's a huge area, and it goes through all the counties in the United States, and it tells you why black people were lynched. This man was lynched because he wouldn't let the white man beat him up. So he decided to lynch him. This man was lynched because this white man thought that he looked at his wife. So he was lynched. By the way, he was 10 years old. He wasn't a man, he was a kid. We're hearing now where people like Emmett Till, where their accusers are coming out and saying, well, it really didn't happen that way. I lied. It's too late. He's been murdered and thrown in the water and dismembered and everything. So the question was, do I want my kids to have to deal with this? And I said, hell no. Because if somebody does something to my kid, I'm probably an eye for an eye kind of guy. I'm gonna be looking for theirs.
So there's uncomfortable situations that people get in, and how should we respond?
That's where I'm going. Next step. Yep. So again, I got to the point where I was fed up. And until others are fed up, they're not gonna do anything about it. Guaranteed. Until you get fed up, and until you see it or know about it or know people that are really dealing with it, nobody does anything about it. And that was one of the things that 6 years ago, Kate Herman Wood, who was the publisher of the Nashville Business Journal, and some of her team reached out to me and said, hey, we see that in Nashville, there's this big racial problem. And when we say Nashville, we mean Middle Tennessee. That includes Brentwood. All right. There's this big racial problem that's been going on for years. I mean, Freedom Riders started here in Nashville. It's been going on for years, but nobody talks about it. Everybody is hush hush. And so they asked me, they said, hey, what are your thoughts about it? How do we deal with this? We're the Nashville Business Journal. We're not the white male Middle Tennessee Business Journal. We're the Nashville Business Journal. So we should cover all folks in Nashville. But we don't have relationships with black business owners or Hispanic business owners or Asian business owners. We just this is our network. And so the first thing I said, you got to expand your network. You can't just live in this box or this bubble. You have to expand your network. And so we talked about that. We brought people, I don't know how many of y'all had ever had a relationship with Vanderbilt University. They had a great gentleman there that was the athletic director, David Williams. He was the chief vice chancellor of legal affairs at Vanderbilt. He was one of the gentlemen I brought in. He helped write the response for the University of Michigan when they were being sued because they had goals to have more minority kids in campus. So he's that kind of guy.
So lead the table,
we brought
though.
them together, and so we got them together, and we started what we called expand conversations. And these expand conversations brought business owners together, and people of different colors, people that weren't like, it wasn't a homogenous room. And we started having frank conversations. One of the questions was, how was race talked about when you were a kid? How's it different now that you have kids?
So if I'm an owner in Nashville, in Brentwood, a white guy, and I want to join the table, what are my steps?
So fast forward, the table. Well, if you want to join the table, that was expand. The table is a year old. If you want to join the table, first of all, you have to get 2 recommendations, which means you have to meet members of the table in order to join. And so if you go to thetableaction.com, thetableaction.com, it will talk to you. You'll find out more about the table. The table brings the entire mission is set to, we understand that there are problems. The entire mission is that we need to, as people, come up with solutions and create opportunities for people of color to increase their level of prosperity. Because education, healthcare, a lot of those ills can be solved if people have money.
And so there's the you don't know what you don't know, right? And so the point of this is that those issues that people may not be aware of, the concerns that Lee articulated, how do you have a forward-thinking conversation about those that you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
So that's the purpose of the table, correct?
And we bring it. We will take a table like this. It wouldn't be all white. It would be mixed up. You'd have people of color. Have a good mix of people, and you'd have these conversations. Is there profiling in Middle Tennessee? And you have the conversation. And the cool thing is, it's not a cancel culture conversation. Nobody's looking to hate you all of a sudden because you have a different point of view. It's a safe zone. This is an opportunity for you to say what you know, because what we know is that people believe based on how they brought up, the environment they were brought up in, that's what they believe to be true. And that's a fact. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it also means that there's an opportunity that there's a possibility that you're wrong or that you have a different point of view. And that's true for me. And I agree with Donovan. That's true for people of color as well as white people. We can have a different, and believe me, this process has helped change me and helped me see things a lot differently than what I used to think. I used to think people just didn't care. Straight up. I thought white people just really didn't care what the hell happened to black people. And they were cool with it. Because people were just going about their business. But the pandemic forced us to see what happened to George Floyd. And so we couldn't unsee that.
The goal is that we know, we care.
Right. There are a lot more people that care than don't. I'm going to say that. I'm not going to say everybody cares. I will say there are a lot more people that care than don't. And when you're having these conversations, the good thing is that you're actually getting to know someone that you didn't know, someone from a different background. And that goes back to what Kip said at the beginning. You got to get to know people that you don't know. You have to intentionally get to know people that you don't know. Intentionally, which means you got to stretch from time to time and meet some people that you just didn't know and find out, what's it like? What's it like? And build a real relationship, not an interview type relationship, but a real relationship with people. And once you get to know people, you're like, oh, we're all the same. We want good things for our kids. At some point, we want to be able to retire. We don't know what the hell's going on with our government. It's just different.
All right.
We all have a lot of those things.
All right, Lee, we're out of time. Do we have questions?
Dr. Wang, a childhood that was tough. And you all have come to a point with a great foundation in a childhood. Is this solely focused on the adults in the room, the business community, or will there be a move to look at education in childhood and building a foundation from that ground up?
This started as a business group discussion, and the goal, honestly, this is our second one. It started in personal conversations. We held it at a TIMBG org meeting, which we encourage you to attend and join. And so this is the punchline would be, the conversation doesn't end now. The punchline would be, help us continue the conversation and to bring forward solutions so that people can be heard and so that we take away the bitterness and there is a solution and something that can be done. Is there any other questions?
Can I add one thing to that?
Please.
I just wanted to say this, and that is, discrimination, race, for him, it was one story. For me, it's another. For some people, I work with a lot of people with disabilities. There's a lot of discrimination against people with disabilities. Somebody walks in a room with no arms, somebody walks in a room blind, somebody walks in a room, work with a lot of wounded warriors, that kind of thing. Asians, short people. Remember that song years and years ago, short people got no reason to live and all that. I mean, you know, there are a lot of people that feel that the act of being treated not fair or less than or not as good as, you know, my father was a Latin, really handsome Latin guy, a small guy. He had to be the best in his business because he always felt discriminated against. So I'm just saying, I just wanted to differentiate. So we're not just talking about Black, white, Asian, Latino. There's a lot of discrimination. We're talking about having conversation and solutions about how we treat people that are different. Right?
And the punchline is there's no whining. There's always solutions. If you're whining, you're probably creating the problem. So if you're in corporate America, if you're bringing a solution, then you're probably part of it. So let's be more part of it than we are whining. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Speaking into this now, conversations are wonderful. I remember when I was growing up, at one point I was in a grocery store. I was thirsty, lived in Atlanta, great place to live to grow up in the 60s. And I went to drink some water out of the water fountain and was immediately jerked down from the water fountain. What? I said, what are you doing drinking out of the colored water fountain? I'm like, colored water would be cool. Who wouldn't want colored water, right? And it's just that type of approach. We're all the same, but we have to look for the best things in everything. So that's my story. My dad was on the Board of Education when we were going through desegregation. I got slammed into lockers and our house got, you know, our mailbox got blown up. So we're even feeling racial tensions from folks that are just like, I mean, it's not just us, them, it's everybody's got to come to an idea of we're all the same. We're all good folks. Yes, sir.
Called The Best of Enemies. True story.
Okay.
About a Black woman and a white man on polar opposites and how they came together because they found common ground.
Awesome.
Best of Enemies. Easy.
Awesome. All right. Quickly, a few more announcements and then we are out. Want to re-welcome my guests and our visitors and our speakers. We will hope you come back and actually just visit again for the fun. We don't have good things going on. Board meeting again on Wednesday at 4:30. And I have one more slide. I just thought I'd end on something light. Speaking of folks that don't really think about what they're saying, never argue with stupid people because they'll drag you down to their level and they'll beat you with their experience. So, yes. We have a challenge to throw down here.
I'd like to challenge you after today's panel spoke. I can talk. And I look around this room and I'd like to challenge the club on membership. I think we need to be a lot more diverse than we are. And I would really like to challenge all of you to bring in some new members that are Black, that are Asian, that are Latino, that are women who we are also discriminated against, and that we become what we're talking about and what we're learning about, and that we all make the effort to bring in a friend who may be a little bit different than we are.
Because we learn from people who are different, right? As was made today. All right, any more announcements for the good of Rotary? Please put the chairs up on the side of the wall, tables up, and we are adjourned for this week. Thank you.